I still can't believe the reception that my UFC 297 predictions video got. Thank you so much to everyone who watched the video, left a comment, and I know a lot of you guys actually found this channel through that video. So I'm super excited and equally nervous to make another predictions video today for 298. We got 3 out of 5 right last time, so there's not a lot of margin for error here, but hopefully we can at least match that result for this card. Keep it in the winning percentage. And finally, if YouTube brought you here and you don't know what ASMR is or why I'm talking like this, check out the description box. I'll put in the description from like Wikipedia or something, and that'll explain what we're doing here. But let me know in the comments what your picks are for this card, and as always, where you think I've gone horribly wrong. Let's get right into it. We're doing the main card like last time, and we'll start at the bottom of the card with Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. So, on the one hand, we have Anthony Hernandez. His professional record is 11 wins, 2 losses, and 1 no contest, although don't get me started on the Nevada State Athletic Commission overturning his Contender Series knockout, because I have opinions, but that's a discussion for another video. Anthony Hernandez is on a 4-fight win streak. I think he got a couple submissions in there, 1 decision, and most recently he knocked out Edmund Shabazian back in May, actually. So he hasn't been super active, but you know, what is this, like a 6, 7, 8, 9 month turnover? Hopefully we'll see him fighting a little more actively coming up. And the thing about Hernandez, and why I'd like to see him be more active depending on how this fight goes, is that he hasn't really been tested against a consistent knockout artist yet, really. The closest thing might have been Kevin Holland back in 2020, and at the time Holland wasn't really known as a knockout artist. But side note, Holland won that fight against Hernandez, 42nd KO, and that was the first of 5 wins in 2020 for Kevin Holland, including 3 knockouts, and then that one weird Charlie Ontiveros muscle tear. But in the Hernandez and Holland fight, Holland basically came out and overwhelmed him, kept it in close quarters, and obviously knocked him out very, very quickly. And the reason I'm bringing up consistent knockouts is that across the octagon from Hernandez will be Roman Kopylov. Kopylov is also on a 4-fight win streak. His professional record is 12 wins, 2 losses, but those last 4 fights happened within 13 months of each other, and he won all of them, either by knockout or TKO. So we'll just call it by knockout. He is such a pleasure to watch, right? He's southpaw, and that left leg of his is so snappy. His MO is basically just to work your liver until you're wobbly, and then he can knock you out with a headshot. And I don't have a reason to think that I need to slow down. I get excited when I talk about Roman Kopylov. I don't have a reason to think that this fight against Hernandez will be any different. That the code, the antidote to Kopylov hasn't been found yet. He's got great takedown defense too. I think in the last fight, Fremd tried taking him down like 5 times with no success. And, he's got pretty decent striking defense as well. So, with all that said, I have to pick Kopylov to win. We'll call it a second round KO. But do keep an eye on those body shots. That is the key to Kopylov's success. Has been. Who knows what he's got in store. Okay, next we have Dvalishvili. I'm going to pronounce it 15 different ways in this video. Are both V's W's? Or I think so. I apologize in advance for my pronunciation. He's fighting against Henry Cejudo. I'm confident with that pronunciation. So, this one feels like a weird one to have on the main card for me. I mean, I know they're ranked second and third in bantamweight right now, but at the risk of upsetting their fans, and especially Cejudo fans, neither of them really feels like champion material to me right now. And look, hopefully I'm proven wrong later in the year. But okay, so Dvalishvili, 16 wins, 4 losses, 9 consecutive wins in the UFC at this point, and all of them but one have been decision wins. But his matchmaking, at least until Petr Yan, is it just me or has it been weird? Like, he had Jose Aldo in 22, Marlon Moraes in 21. He's just fighting these guys, great fighters in their own right, but who are on their way out of the UFC by the time Merab gets to fight them. But anyway, he's got fine pace, he's strong, he can take you down to, he's relentless with his takedown attempts, although he might have trouble keeping you on the ground. But he is good at frustrating his opponent, controlling the rhythm of the fight, and in doing so, he racks up those points with the judges. Now Cejudo vacated the title in 2020, came back 3 years later, had a shot at the belt, immediately lost by split decision, I think, to Aljamain. And for what it's worth, I think it was a fair win for Aljo. But what we saw in that fight was Cejudo trying to be patient, and because of that, he was outstruck. But now he's fighting 3 rounds instead of 5, so I hope we'll really get to see him, let his hands go earlier in the fight. He sort of has to approach this one kind of like he did with Dillashaw, for example. But that was 5 years ago. And we don't know if he's capable of that anymore, with all due respect. From, 32 to 37 years old, your athletic performance really does decline. So, what do I think will happen? I'll say Dvalishvili by decision. Again, I hope at least one of these guys proves me wrong and shows up looking like a real contender, which is what you expect from fighters being placed on the main card. Now, Jeff Neal versus Garry. Jeff Neal is coming off of a literally last minute submission loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov, and before that he knocked out Vicente Luque in the third round back in 2022. However, I feel like every card has that one fight that I'm like, I can't talk about this fighter in a vacuum because of who his opponent is. Because honestly, Neal is a great fighter. His punches are devastating. I mean, his arms, have you seen his arms? They are not welterweight arms. But he has to face Garry this weekend, and that is tough. Garry is systematic. He is methodical. He's a future title contender. There's no doubt about it. In fact, while we're making predictions, I'm going to say that Garry will fight Shavkat Rakhmonov for the title in late 2025. We need to sort out Leon and Bilal first, but I think we will get to that point eventually. But that's a tangent. This doesn't count towards my winning percentage, okay? So Garry has this just natural ability to intimidate his opponent in the octagon because everything he does just hurts. And in that respect, I think he'll just outstrike Jeff Neal, and I kind of see this going to decision, and I'm picking Garry to win. This should be a fun fight to watch either way. And to be honest, I think in the last card, I was so convinced, like the person that I was so convinced that had the upper hand, if I'm not mistaken, was Mike Malott, who ended up losing in that PPV. So, we'll see if it turns into a pattern for me, that the one fight that I'm like, it doesn't matter who goes up against this guy, he will win, he then loses. If that is the case, I'm sorry, Garry, I hold my hands up. So next we have Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. And to be honest, this is maybe another fight that I'm struggling to be excited for. Middleweight is just so weird right now. So on the one hand, we have Robert Whittaker, 25 wins, 7 losses, obviously a very long and successful career. And then you have Paulo Costa, who's on 14 wins, 2 losses. He's only fought twice since Izzy, which feels like such a long time ago to me. And that's the piece that's making this a difficult pick for me, because in theory, Costa should be able to outstrike Whittaker and win a decision. But I think there's more to consider here than just the numbers. I think Costa could have some ring rust. He hasn't fought since 2022, and that was against an aging Luke Rockhold. And I think at this point in both of their careers, there's sort of more on the line for Whittaker. To me, this feels like a fork in the road for Whittaker. If he wins, I think there's an argument that he could be starting towards a final title run. And if he loses, then it's kind of a major downturn, and then you have to start asking, what's next? Is it retirement? And I say that with nothing but respect. I think this will be his 21st fight in the UFC. He went pro in 2009, so it's normal for the body to start feeling it at this point, even though he's not that old. So all this to say, I'll base my choice, my pick, on psychology over measurable performance here. This is a tough one because I know Whittaker wants to knock him out, and I'm afraid he's just going to swing big, tire himself out, and hand the decision to Costa. But no, let's have some faith that we'll get a glimpse of a young, hungry Robert Whittaker, a well-timed kick in the second round. Whittaker wins. That's it. I'm locking it in. The pick has been made. Okay, now the main event. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilya Topuria. For the featherweight title, this should be Volk's 6th title defense. And of course, both men are undefeated as featherweights in the UFC. Now, something that we can't ignore in this matchup is the age difference. Volkanovski is turning 36 this year. Topuria just turned 27. He's sort of the baby of the featherweight division. Other than maybe Bryce Mitchell, who might still be in his 20s, I think the top 10 ranked featherweights are all in their 30s. Now, between the two, on their feet, Volkanovski can outstrike Topuria. But we can't ignore Topuria's defense. He has brilliant strike defense that can really frustrate his opponents, and he'll be comfortable standing there and boxing with Volkanovski. So I think the puzzle for Volkanovski's team is, do we fly out the gate with a barrage of strikes? 70 strikes in the first round. Hope that at least half of them land, although that didn't work for Josh Emmett. Or do we play chess? Do we let Topuria set the tone and respond with our power? Either way, I think the pressure is on Volkanovski to come up with a game plan that works. And for that reason, I have to give Topuria the edge in this fight. I think his youth and his defensive abilities are his strength here. I think they'll make him a more flexible fighter. However, Volkanovski decides to approach the fight. So my pick is Ilia Topuria, new champ. I'll say a decision win. Although I think he shouldn't rely on a decision win. No one should, obviously, but especially when you have a huge, well-respected name in front of you in the octagon that can subconsciously sway judges. Sometimes we've seen it happen. So he should be aiming for a finish in the early rounds. We don't know what Volkanovski's jaw is like since that Islam TKO, his last fight, I think. But I think there will be a certain level of timidity for Topuria, given that this is his first shot at a UFC title. And Volkanovski is by far the biggest name he's taken on. The fact that that Topuria is ranked third when you look at his opponents, his past opponents, is very, very interesting. But that wraps up my picks for UFC 298. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're new to the channel, thanks for sticking around. If you're old to the channel,